Hey folks, Curtis Stone here. We're going to be looking at states in the United States and provinces in Canada that would make ideal candidates for homesteads. Not just the states, but the places in the states. So we're going to go through every U.S. state, every Canadian province, and we're going to feature the areas that I would avoid if I wanted to be homesteading, off-grid living, prepping, whatever, and the places that I would consider looking at. We'll talk about urban avoidance and water avoidance, as well as agricultural avoidance. Anything that could be a risk to your health or your safety, we're going to generally avoid those places and look at areas that are more green, more rural, that have more water potentially, the things that we need to live. So today we're going to be looking at Arkansas. This is actually one of my favorite states these days. I find there's a lot of good value in it. It's the regions that are interesting are out of the way, and it's cheap here. You can find unbelievable deals in the Homestead Accelerator program that I run every single week. We feature properties that are just bangers in Arkansas as far as value, access, circulation, topography, water, infrastructure, you name it. Going down the 11 scales of permanence, which is what we look at when we're considering properties. Arkansas really has a lot going on. But mainly where I want to avoid in Arkansas is this entire Mississippi River Valley, basically. Main reason being is that it's where there's a lot of people. It's where there's a lot of chemicals. It's where there's just a lot of government infrastructure. It's just densely populated, especially, around the Memphis area. I don't want to be anywhere near that. So it's just a lot of infrastructure, government infrastructure. Basically, what I say is there's a direct correlation between the amount of concrete and the amount of freedom that you have on a varying scale. But generally speaking, when you look at an urban metropolitan area, you want to think about the amount of concrete that's there and how many roads, how many buildings, how many government employees, how many corporations, bridges, sidewalks, all the things that involve policy, essentially. And the saying that I have is, where the money flows, the policy goes. So when you're thinking about levels of freedom, you want to be away from, even in here, coming into the bottom of the state here, or the east side of the state. This is all just big conventional farming. And the roads are straight and narrow, and the access is easy in and around this area. And it's a lot of chemicals and industry in here. Now, this area here, there's trees and there's less industry, though there's some, like, look at this, what's going on here. There's some kind of, looks like sulfur, some kind of mining or some kind of industrial project going on there. But, even coming into here, these foothills here, not so bad. You might find some neat properties in here. It's actually quite surprisingly undeveloped for this part of Arkansas. But needless to say, I wouldn't really want to live in any of this Mississippi Valley. There's contamination in and throughout here, and there's government infrastructure, and there's just less freedom in general. But let's look at, in our state here, let's look at our no-go zones. Boom. So these metropolitan areas, these circles are 50-mile radiuses. So that's 60 miles is 100 kilometers. So it's just under 100 kilometers for the Canadians or Europeans watching. And so those are our general no-go zones, but we're not going to hold it to we're not going to hold your feet to the fire on it. I would say in the largest metropolitan areas, further you'd want to be away from. So, Little Rock's a fairly big metropolitan zone, but you could be within the 50 miles and be up in some of these foothills, and you might find some sweet properties. Okay. So I'm not necessarily saying completely avoid those areas altogether, but you get these, do they call these the Ozarks? I just love this stuff. They have this into Missouri and this whole region, even between these two states. And we'll look at Missouri separately, but I just love this region in here. And there's a lot of cool people out there, real sort of call it anarchist or at least staunchly conservative areas that people just want to live their lives and leave me alone, the Gagston flag, if you will, is it the Gagston snake flag? Don't tread on me. That kind of mentality. You're going to find that out here. So yeah, let's just avoid these areas here. But in this is a smaller metropolitan area than Little Rock. So, you might find some sweet spots up in these foothills. Certainly, these Ozark lakes are so cool. And I just can't get my head around how these were created. But that's a whole other conversation for another time. But so you could find some sweet areas in here. Yeah, Ozark, St. Francis National Forest. Okay, that's what it is. It's the yeah, okay, I get it. Anyways, beautiful areas up in here. Okay, but anyways, those are generally going to be our no-go zones. Let's just look at our go zones, good areas that we would consider. Coming down in here, look at this, beautiful topography. Little towns, so you got access to things, but just beautiful nature and beautiful topography. There's so much water in these mountains. And, with the mountainous regions, you also have the benefit of safety in terms of natural disasters. So if there's torrential rains, for example, let's say there's biblical rains, and it's raining for a week at a time, you can see that kind of rain in Arkansas. When you're up in the foothills, all the water is draining away from you. But when you're down in the valleys, that's when you get flooded out. So that's another reason to avoid valleys in general. But, we could look at a place like this and let's just pick a place. Let's just see if we can see a homestead and let's just pretend that that's a place that we might look at to buy. Let's look at a place with some infrastructure that isn't just, raw land. Let's come down. Right here, these are the things you want to avoid. These are intensive chicken farms, just for Tyson Foods and stuff like that. These smell like hell. You don't want to be anywhere near those. But certainly up in here, you're going to be well out of the way. But let's just say, yeah, this is all a good zone. Let's say, see, there's more of it there. You want to avoid that stuff. It stinks. It really does. So look at, they're all over the foothills, but you can be away from that stuff. Okay, let's come in here. This is nice. Let's say, this is, let's get off the beaten path, actually. Let's get off the main road. Okay, here we go. This looks like it'd be kind of cool. Yeah, okay. Let's say this is a property right here, and I'll just arbitrarily draw it out. I don't know if this is the property lines or not. We could go look that up, but we're just kind of having a hypothetical conversation here, so it doesn't really matter. So 62 acres here. Whoa, this is cool. This is super cool. There's a pond here. Okay, so you're at the end of a road. This is an ideal situation. It really is. You're at the end of the road. You got your core infrastructure in here. You're on top of a little ridge, so there's some foothills. Look at this. We got some low-lying foothills in here, and you're at the top of a ridge/plateau that comes down towards this primary valley. So we call this a primary valley, and this would be a secondary valley. But this primary valley is a tributary that a bunch of other valleys are feeding into. So that's why it's this primary valley. You have a primary ridge and a secondary ridge as well. But this is really neat because we've got this property that comes in with sweet access, fairly easy access in, but it's at the end of a road. And then we have our main infrastructure where the buildings and cleared area is fairly small. But let's just draw it out real quick here. So it's less than an acre, 0.71 acre. But that's okay because you could expand if you look at the way the topography is here. So we got the road access coming in along this ridge, okay? And you can see that by seeing that the land goes down there and there. So they put it in the ideal place. So we're following along the ridge. That means that you could fairly easily log, I often tell people 5 acres is all you need as far as cleared area on a homestead. You could be on 100 acres, but all you really need is 5 acres to do everything. And that number is flexible. And we can get that. We can get close to that. And you don't necessarily need all of it, but let's just see what we can get as far as the path of least resistance with what's already here along this ridge. We can get pretty close and we could stretch it out. I would say we could easily get our 5 acres here, and you could pull this out a little bit like that. There you go. 5.5 acres. Look at that. See what I mean by that's the main top access of the property, so it's going to be the easiest area to clear out. It's the flattest area. That's the path of least resistance because it's following the road infrastructure. That's what's already there. So that's useful. So we can do it on a property like this. And how cool is this, that you have this sort of benefit of multiple forms of topography, which means that you have microclimates in your property. I love microclimates. They're one of the 11 scales of permanence that we look for when we evaluate property. So we want to think about that, because that gives you different places to enjoy, different places to grow. You know, this kind of place here is where you probably have a lot of mushrooms coming up. Shaded area. It's cooler, especially in the summer. You know, that's in north aspect. That's why. But then along here, you got a south aspect. So you got another neat little microclimate. And up here, you're just exposed. So it's kind of cool. Like you could literally, in here, have all the infrastructure you need for a homestead. You could. Let's just say we want to do, I want to have at least an acre of fields. What's it going to take to get that? There, just along that one side of the road. We could pretty much achieve that. Right? Boom. Farms right there. There's your fields. Vegetables, pastures for some small animals, probably just chickens and like layers and meat birds. And then an area for trees, food forest. You could have orchards, whatnot. And then this other section here, if you wanted to have more areas for grazing animals, that would do it there. You could consider that right there. You know, just about an acre. That's fine. You could have a couple dairy cows. You could have pigs. You could have goats. And you could keep some of the trees in there too. And they could be integrated into the way you lay that out. But how neat is this, that you're on this ridge looking down in these valleys? So you could potentially harvest water through here if you need it to. Ohio, there's so much topical water that, you know, coming into this pond, a lot of it's just going to feed in there naturally. And so isn't this cool? Because this is like is that a pond? I hope I'm correct. Let's just go back in our timeline and see if I know what I'm talking about. So that was logged at one point. And so if it's a pond, it wasn't created till later. So let's see. It looks like a pond to me, but it might actually be shade. But it could be a pond, because what you could do is, if you wanted to put a pond up here, what you would do is all this stuff sheds out this way, away from the pond. But you could put a French drain in here. So you could basically harvest all the water. Let's find a path of least resistance where we could get from higher points to a low point. So let's just imagine this is our pond here. Okay. That's where we want to put a pond. We would take drain tile and dig a ditch basically along here. So this is kind of like, in permaculture, you've heard of swales. Typically, swales are done on contour. But if you do them slightly off contour, you can move that water fairly passively to a center point. And so what you do is you come in here. I'm going to draw a path, and there's a little other valley there, which is kind of cool. You might want to benefit from that. So you'd kind of go like this. You'd go through that valley, and then you would be cutting a line and then putting drain tile, probably a 6-inch drain tile, into it. And then you'd fill it with gravel later. But essentially, you could direct water into a pond just like this. Because this now, everything that sheds when it rains, because this is the natural shed spot here, is going to hit this and then just passively go this way and fill it up this way. And you could do the same thing here. You come along here, and you would, and you know, I'm doing this approximate, but just so you get the idea. You're going to follow a long contour, going down at least 1%. You have to be at least 1%, otherwise you're just going to stop on grade. But you could essentially have a complete catchment like this, bringing water into this. And of course, if you had a pond down here, which I would definitely want to do, it would benefit more. And then perhaps you pump water up there, but you could, in a short term, passively get water up here without pumping it by doing something like this. And it might not take that much work, because you might be able to go through the trees. A lot of this stuff's deciduous too, so it's easier to clear forest and deciduous trees than it is softwood trees, hardwood to softwood, in my opinion. But there's a potential little homestead there, just kind of riffing and thinking about what you could do in that kind of situation. But yeah, in Arkansas, man, it's really about getting up in these foothills out of the Mississippi Valley and away from CAFOs, those caged animal feeding operations, right? All of that kind of stuff. What are we looking at? Did we see any in here? But you know what I'm talking about when we looked at those CAFOs, those industrial chicken farms. It's done a lot in Arkansas. It's an industry to avoid. In our Homestead Accelerator program, the first thing we do when we evaluate an area is we look for threats. And if we find a threat to your health, your well-being in any type of way, whether it's an industrial threat like a mine, a factory, even a major highway would be an industrial threat, also a population threat. We immediately look for threats, and if we find a threat, we eliminate the property. So you won't see anything in our Homestead Accelerator program that has a threat. But if there's a vague threat, we do mention it. And when you look at our Homestead, the way we have the Homestead pages laid out, when you scroll down, first thing, you're going to see a video, which is our summary of that program, much like what I'm doing right now, of that particular property. And then underneath there, you're going to see data about what's pertinent to you as a homesteader. And then down on the bottom, you'll see threats. And so we address those threats right out of the gate. We use FEMA, we use a variety of different things, but we also just zoom out and look for things that are red flags, like those chicken farms, those CAFOs and stuff like that, that'll smell disgusting. You don't want to be near that. So that's a threat. And of course, climate threats, whether it be hurricane, tornado, flood, you name it, we factor those in too. And we never list properties that are in a climate risk area. So yeah, if you guys want to check that out, there'll be a link somewhere in the video here or at freedomfarmers.com. But that's the state of Arkansas in a nutshell, and some food for thought there. If you guys like the video, smash the like. We'll see you in the next one.